Imagine waking up without an alarm. Imagine there is no shrill electronic tone piercing through your sleep, no vibration pulling you from the depths of a dream, no glowing screen demanding your immediate attention. Instead, imagine waking slowly, gradually, like the world itself is waking alongside you. Imagine the first sensation you become aware of is not the weight of the day's obligations pressing down upon your chest, but rather the soft warmth of bodies sleeping near you, the gentle rhythm of breath that is not your own, the faint rustling of wind moving through leaves somewhere beyond where you lie. Now take that feeling and hold it for a moment. Let it settle into your mind like water finding its level in a quiet pool. Because tonight, we are going to travel back in time. We are going to leave behind the buzzing, beeping, notification-filled world that surrounds you now, and we are going to step into a morning that happened roughly 40,000 years ago. A morning that in many ways was exactly like yours, and in other ways was so profoundly different that it might as well have taken place on another planet entirely. 40,000 years. It sounds like an impossibly long time, doesn't it? And in some ways it is. 40,000 years ago, there were no cities, no roads, no written words, no metal tools, no agriculture, no domesticated animals beyond perhaps the earliest wolves beginning their long journey toward becoming dogs. There were no governments, no borders, no clocks ticking away the hours. The world was vast and wild and largely unknown, filled with creatures that no longer exist and landscapes that have since been transformed beyond recognition. But here is the remarkable thing, the thing that makes this journey possible, the thing that allows you to close your eyes right now and truly imagine yourself waking up in that distant morning. The people who lived 40,000 years ago were exactly like you, not similar to you, not almost like you, exactly like you. Anatomically, neurologically, emotionally, they were human beings indistinguishable from the person you see when you look in a mirror. Their brains were the same size as yours. Their capacity for language was the same as yours. Their ability to love, to fear, to wonder, to dream, to laugh, to grieve, to create, to imagine, all of it was precisely what you carry within yourself right now, at this very moment. If you could somehow travel back to that morning 40,000 years ago and take a baby from that time and bring them forward to the present day, that child would grow up speaking your language, using your technology, navigating your world with the same ease as anyone born in the modern era. And if you could take a baby from today and send them back to that ancient morning, that child would grow up learning the ways of the land, reading the signs of weather and animal movement, creating tools and art and music, fitting seamlessly into a community that existed tens of thousands of years before anything we would recognize as civilization. This is perhaps the most profound thing to understand as we begin this journey together. The people we are about to meet are not primitive versions of you. They are not rough drafts of humanity waiting to be refined. They are complete, fully realized human beings with rich inner lives, complex social relationships, sophisticated knowledge systems, and a depth of experience that in some ways we have lost in our modern rush toward progress. So let us begin. Let us leave behind the hum of electricity, the glow of screens, the distant rumble of traffic that forms the constant background noise of contemporary existence. Let us travel back 40,000 years to a morning just like this one, a morning when someone very much like you opened their eyes to greet a new day. The first thing you notice is the quality of the darkness. It is not the absolute darkness of a sealed room, nor is it the artificial half-light of a city that never truly sleeps. It is a living darkness, a breathing darkness, a darkness that is slowly, almost imperceptibly beginning to lift. You have been asleep for perhaps 10 or 11 hours, which sounds extraordinary by modern standards, but was perfectly normal for most of human history. Without artificial light to extend the day, without screens to stimulate your brain into wakefulness, without the cultural pressure to maximize every waking moment, sleep came easily and lasted long. You are not alone. You can feel the warmth of your family around you, perhaps a partner pressed against your back, perhaps a child curled against your chest, perhaps an elderly relative resting nearby, their breathing slow and steady in the quiet morning air. The shelter you sleep in is simple but effective, perhaps a framework of branches covered with animal hides, perhaps a shallow cave with a soft floor of dried grasses and leaves, perhaps a lean-to of woven materials that blocks the wind and traps the warmth of bodies and the lingering heat from last night's fire. The fire, even now, hours after anyone last fed it, you can smell the faint trace of wood smoke in the air. It is a comforting smell, one of the oldest and most deeply embedded scents in human memory. For hundreds of thousands of years, fire has meant safety, fire has meant warmth, fire has meant the ability to cook food and gather together after dark. The smell of smoke is woven into your very being, and it settles over you like a familiar blanket as you lie here in the slowly lightening darkness. Outside, the world is beginning to wake. You can hear birds starting to stir, their first tentative notes rising into the air like questions. You can hear the wind moving through the landscape, carrying with it smells that you have learned to read like a language, the fresh green scent of recent rain, the dry, dusty smell of a hot day approaching, the sharp tang of distant flowers drawing insects toward their pollen, the faint musky trace of animals that passed this way during the night. Every breath you take is filled with information, and your sleeping mind has been processing these signals all night long, alert for anything unusual, anything that might indicate danger or opportunity. But this morning, there is nothing alarming in the air. This morning, the world is simply waking up, just as it has done every morning of your life, just as it will do every morning for as long as there are mornings to be had. And so you lie here for a while, suspended in that delicious space between sleep and wakefulness, your body warm and comfortable, your mind drifting along the edges of consciousness like a leaf floating on a gentle stream. This is something we have largely forgotten in the modern world, the simple pleasure of waking slowly, of allowing consciousness to return at its own pace, of not immediately reaching for a device or jumping out of bed to begin the day's frantic race against time. 40,000 years ago, there was no such race. There was no schedule to keep, no appointment to rush toward, no fear of being late for something that existed only as an abstract commitment. There was only the rhythm of the day itself, the ancient and eternal cycle of light and darkness, warmth and cold, activity and rest. And so you wake slowly, you feel your body coming back to itself, feel the pleasant ache of muscles that worked yesterday, feel the hunger beginning to stir in your belly, feel the warmth of the people around you. Someone near you is also waking, and you exchange a few soft sounds, not quite words, but something older than words, a simple acknowledgement that you are here, that you are alive, that another day is beginning. Eventually, you rise. You stretch your body, working out the stiffness that comes from sleeping on the ground. Though you have done this every night of your life, and your body is well adapted to it. The morning air is cool against your skin, and you step out of your shelter into a world that is just beginning to glow with the first light of dawn. The sky to the east is painted in soft colors, pale pink, gentle orange, the faintest hint of gold beginning to appear at the horizon. The stars are fading, retreating into the brightening blue, though a few of the brightest still linger, small points of light that your ancestors have watched for as long as there have been ancestors to watch them. The moon, perhaps half full, hangs low in the western sky, preparing to set as the sun prepares to rise. You have known the moon all your life, You have watched its cycle from new to full to new again, and you have learned that these cycles are connected to other cycles, the movement of certain animals, the behavior of fish in rivers and tides in distant oceans, the rhythms of the human body itself. Around you, the camp is coming to life. Others are emerging from their shelters, stretching and yawning, exchanging greetings in the soft morning light. There are perhaps 20 or 30 people in your group, maybe a few more, maybe a few less, depending on recent births and deaths, on marriages that have brought new members in or taken old members away, on the natural fluctuations of a community that moves together through the world. You know everyone here, not just their names, but their histories, their personalities, their skills and quirks, their relationships to one another and to you. There is your mother, already moving toward the place where the food is stored, her movements carrying the efficient grace of someone who has performed this task countless times before. There is your uncle, sitting by the remnants of last night's fire, carefully adding small sticks to coax the embers back to life. There are children beginning to stir, their voices rising in the bright curiosity that seems to come so naturally to the young of every era. There is the elder who has lived longer than anyone else in the group, whose stories stretch back into a past that seems almost mythical to the younger members, whose knowledge of plants and animals and weather and stars is so deep that it sometimes feels like magic. This is your family in the broadest sense of the word, not just the people who share your blood, but the people who share your life, who gather food with you, who make tools with you, who protect each other and teach each other, and sometimes argue with each other, who laugh together and grieve together, and face the challenges of existence together. In the modern world, we often speak of family as a small, isolated unit, a nuclear family contained within the walls of a single home. But for most of human history, family was something much larger, something more like a web of relationships that supported each individual from every direction. You walk toward the fire, feeling the first warmth of the flames on your skin. Someone hands you a piece of food, perhaps some nuts that were gathered yesterday, perhaps some dried meat from a recent hunt, perhaps some root vegetables that were roasted the night before and are now cool but still nourishing. You eat without hurry, enjoying the simple satisfaction of hunger being met, of your body receiving what it needs to face the day ahead. And what exactly will you do today? This is the question at the heart of our journey, the question that has brought us together on this calm evening as you listen to these words and prepare yourself for sleep. What did early humans actually do all day? How did they spend those long hours between waking and sleeping, between sunrise and sunset, between one night's fire and the next? The popular imagination often paints a grim picture. We have been taught to think of prehistoric life as a constant struggle for survival, a brutal and exhausting fight against nature that left no time for anything beyond the basic necessities of finding food and avoiding death. We picture our ancestors as desperate creatures, always hungry, always afraid, always on the edge of extinction, living lives that were, in the famous phrase, nasty, brutish, and short. But the more we learn about how early humans actually lived, the more this picture seems incomplete, even misleading, because the truth is far more interesting, far more nuanced, and in some ways far more relaxing to consider as you lie here now, letting your body sink deeper into comfort and your mind drift along with these words. The truth is that for much of human history, people worked far less than we do today, not because they were lazy, but because they didn't need to work as much. The natural world, before the rise of agriculture and the explosion of human population that followed, was remarkably abundant. There was food to be found in forests and grasslands, in rivers and lakes, along coastlines and on mountain slopes. There were animals to hunt, fish to catch, plants to gather, insects and eggs and honey to collect. And if you knew where to look and how to look, and after tens of thousands of years of accumulated knowledge, your ancestors definitely knew, then meeting your basic needs rarely required more than a few hours of work per day. This is not speculation. This is something that anthropologists have documented extensively by studying the few remaining hunter-gatherer societies that persisted into the modern era. The San people of southern Africa, the Hadza of Tanzania, the Aboriginal Australians, the Inuit of the Arctic, all of these groups living in vastly different environments with vastly different challenges, shared one remarkable characteristic. They spent far less time working than people in agricultural or industrial societies. Some studies suggest that hunter-gatherers worked only about 3 to 5 hours per day on average, leaving the rest of their time for other activities, for rest, for socializing, for play, for art, for all the things that make life more than mere survival. So as you sit by the fire on this morning 40,000 years ago, eating your simple breakfast and watching the sun climb higher into the sky, you are not facing a day of endless labor. You are not dreading a long commute or an overwhelming workload or a series of meetings that will drain your energy and attention. You are simply present, here, now, in this moment, with these people, in this place that has been your home for as long as you can remember. The morning passes slowly. There is no rush, no urgency, no ticking clock counting down the minutes until some deadline arrives. You finish eating and move through the camp, perhaps helping with small tasks that need doing, perhaps sitting and talking with others, perhaps walking a short distance to relieve yourself in the designated area away from where people eat and sleep. Personal hygiene in prehistoric times was probably more thorough than we often imagine. People washed when water was available, used various plant materials to clean their teeth and bodies, took care of their appearance in ways that mattered to their communities. The children are fully awake now, and their energy begins to spread through the camp like ripples in a pond. Small ones toddle around on unsteady legs, watched carefully by older siblings and adults, never far from someone who can catch them if they stumble, protect them if danger appears. Older children form small groups, chasing each other through the spaces between shelters, their laughter rising into the morning air like birdsong. Play is something we share with all mammals, and in humans it reaches a particular depth and complexity. These children are not just burning off excess energy, they are learning. They are learning how to move through their environment, how to read the expressions and intentions of others, how to cooperate and compete, how to navigate the social world they will inhabit as adults. They are developing skills that they don't even know they are developing, and they are doing it through the pure, unself-conscious joy of play. You watch them for a while, perhaps smiling at their antics, perhaps remembering your own childhood not so many years ago when you did the same things in this same place. Someone calls out that a group is going to gather food, and you rise from where you've been sitting, stretching once more, feeling your body ready to move. Gathering was the foundation of the prehistoric diet. Despite our cultural emphasis on hunting, all those dramatic images of humans pursuing large animals across open landscapes, the reality is that gathered foods almost always provided the majority of calories. Plants don't run away, they don't fight back, they don't require dangerous confrontations or long tracking expeditions. They simply grow, and if you know where they grow, and when they are ready to be collected, they offer a reliable and relatively safe source of nutrition. The group that sets out this morning is perhaps 7 or 8 people, mostly women, but with a few men as well. The strict gendered division of labor that is sometimes portrayed in popular accounts of prehistoric life was almost certainly more flexible than we often assume. You walk together through the landscape, following paths that have been walked so many times they are visible as faint traces through the vegetation. though they look nothing like roads or even trails. They are simply places where feet have fallen before, accumulated wisdom about the easiest way to move from here to there. The landscape around you is alive with information. You notice plants as you pass them. This one is edible, but not ripe yet. That one is ready to harvest, but someone will need to come back with a digging stick to get at the roots. This one is poisonous and should be avoided. That one has medicinal properties and should be remembered for times of illness. You notice animal signs, tracks in soft ground, droppings that indicate what animals have passed and how recently, broken branches, and disturbed vegetation that tells stories to anyone who knows how to read them. This knowledge is not written down. It exists only in the minds of the people who carry it, passed from generation to generation through observation, through practice, through the patient teaching of elders to young. And it is modern studies of hunter-gatherer societies have documented that typical individuals in these groups can identify hundreds or even thousands of different plant and animal species, along with detailed knowledge of their properties, their behaviors, their seasonal patterns, their relationships to one another and to the landscape as a whole. You are not consciously thinking about all of this as you walk. You are simply moving through a world you know intimately, a world that is as familiar to you as a modern person's neighborhood is to them more familiar perhaps, because you have been learning this landscape since before you could walk, carried on someone's back through these same paths, absorbing information before you even had words to describe it. The group reaches a place where a particular type of root grows abundantly. You have been here before, many times, and you know that the roots are at their most nutritious at this time of year. The soil here is soft enough that digging is relatively easy, and there are enough plants that everyone can work without crowding each other. You kneel down using a sharpened stick to loosen the earth and begin the slow, meditative work of extraction. This is not the kind of work that exhausts you. It is rhythmic, repetitive, almost hypnotic. Your body knows what to do without requiring much conscious direction, leaving your mind free to wander, to think, to talk with the people around you. And talk you do, soft conversation flowing back and forth, stories being shared, jokes being made, opinions being offered on matters small and large. The gathering is as much a social activity as a practical one, a time to catch up on news, to work through small conflicts, to strengthen the bonds that hold the group together. Sometimes the conversation is light and playful. Sometimes it touches on deeper matters, concerns about a sick child, memories of someone who died, speculation about what the coming seasons might bring. There is no separation between work and social life, no boundary between productivity and relationship. They are woven together, inseparable, each giving meaning to the other. The sun climbs higher, and the day grows warmer. You have gathered enough roots to fill the containers you brought, perhaps woven baskets, perhaps simple bags made from animal hide. It has taken perhaps 2 hours, maybe a bit more, and now the work is done. Not the work of the entire day, but this particular task, and it was successful. There will be food tonight and tomorrow because of what you have done this morning. On the way back to camp, the group stops at a place where water emerges from the ground in a small spring. The water is cold and clear and tastes like nothing, which is to say, it tastes perfect because water should taste like nothing. And modern water often does. You drink deeply, feeling the coolness spread through your body, refreshing you against the warmth of the day. Others splash water on their faces, on their arms, enjoying the simple pleasure of being cool and clean. Someone notices that berries are ripe on a bush near the spring. They weren't quite ready the last time the group passed this way, but now they are, and so a few minutes are spent gathering them, eating some immediately, and saving others to bring back to camp. The children who remained behind will be delighted. Children seem to universally love sweet foods, a preference that makes sense given how rare concentrated sweetness was in the prehistoric world. Back at camp, the middle of the day arrived. The sun is high, the shadows are short, and the air is warm. In some environments, this would be a time to rest, to retreat to the shade, and wait out the hottest hours. In others, it might be comfortable enough to continue with activity, but either way, there is no pressure to fill every moment with productive work. The food you gathered this morning, combined with what others gathered and what was already stored from previous days, is more than enough to meet the group's needs. And so you find a comfortable spot in the shade of a tree, perhaps with a friend or two, and you simply exist for a while. You watch the clouds drift across the sky, each one a unique shape that will never exist again exactly as it exists now. You feel the breeze on your skin. You listen to the sounds of the world around you, insects humming, birds calling, leaves rustling, the distant voices of children still at play. This kind of rest is increasingly rare in the modern world. We have filled our lives with constant stimulation, screens that demand our attention, notifications that interrupt our thoughts, an endless stream of information that leaves no room for quiet observation. But for most of human history, rest was a natural and essential part of life, woven into the rhythm of each day, as naturally as eating or sleeping. You are not being lazy right now. You are not wasting time. You are doing exactly what human beings are designed to do, alternating between periods of activity and periods of rest, allowing your body and mind to recover from exertion, storing up energy for whatever may come next. Your ancestors who did this survived and thrived. Your ancestors who couldn't rest, who drove themselves constantly without pause, probably didn't fare as well. As you lie here in the shade, your mind drifts. As you lie here in the shade, your mind drifts. Perhaps you think about nothing in particular, your consciousness floating in that pleasant state between directed thought and the wandering of dreams. Nearby, someone is working on it. They have a piece of stone carefully selected for its properties, and they are using another stone to chip away at it, shaping it into something useful. The sound is rhythmic, almost useful, the sharp crack of stone striking stone, followed by a small pause, then another strike. You have heard this sound all your life. It is the sound of human ingenuity, of minds solving problems, of hands transforming raw materials into things of value. Tool making was not just a practical skill, it was an art. The tools that have survived from 40,000 years ago show levels of sophistication and aesthetic awareness that challenge any notion of early humans as simple or unsophisticated. Some tools were clearly made to be beautiful as well as functional, their shapes refined beyond what was strictly necessary, their surfaces polished to a shine that served no practical purpose but must have pleased the eye of the maker and anyone who saw them. The person making the tool today is not creating something extraordinary. It is a routine piece, a blade that will be used for cutting plants or scraping hides, or one of the many other tasks that require a sharp edge. But even so, there is skill in what they do, knowledge passed down through countless generations, a conversation between hand and stone that produces something new from something ancient. You watch for a while, half drowsy in the afternoon heat, and then your attention drifts elsewhere. Someone is braiding another person's hair, the movements of their fingers quick and practiced. Someone else is nursing an infant, The child's eyes half closed in contentment. An older man is teaching a young boy how to repair a damaged spear, his voice patient as he explains each step, his hands guiding the boy's hands when needed. This is what life looked like for most of human history, not a desperate struggle for survival, but a web of relationships, a community of people caring for each other, learning from each other, passing knowledge and skills from one generation to the next. The modern world has given us many things, medicine and technology and comfort and safety, but it has also taken things away, made us more isolated from one another, more dependent on institutions and systems that can feel cold and impersonal compared to the warmth of a group gathered together in the afternoon shade. The afternoon wears on, the sun begins its slow descent toward the horizon, and the quality of the light changes, becoming softer, more gold. The temperature begins to drop, just slightly, and the world takes on a different character, less intense, more peaceful, as if the land itself is exhaling after the heat of midday. A hunting party returns to camp. They have been gone since early morning, a group of perhaps 5 or 6 individuals who set out before dawn to pursue game. Today, they were successful. They carry with them a medium-sized animal, perhaps a deer or something similar, enough meat to feed the entire group for several days, with some left over to dry and preserve for later. The return of successful hunters is a moment of celebration, though not in the loud, boisterous way that modern celebrations often take. There are smiles and expressions of approval, quick conversations exchanged about how the hunt went, where the animal was found, who made the crucial throw or shot that brought it down. The hunters are tired but pleased, their faces showing the satisfaction that comes from a difficult task completed successfully. But here is something important to understand. Hunting was not a daily occurrence. Despite its prominence in the stories we tell about prehistoric life, hunting was actually a relatively rare event, something that happened perhaps once every few days or even less frequently, depending on the environment and the season. When it was successful, it provided a significant amount of high-quality nutrition. When it failed, which happened more often than not, the group relied on gathered foods to meet their needs. This is why the gatherers' work this morning was so important, and why gathering is sometimes described as the more reliable half of the hunter-gatherer lifestyle. Gathering provides the baseline, the constant source of nutrition that keeps everyone fed day after day. Hunting provides the peaks, the occasional surges of protein and fat that are valuable but unpredictable. The animal is carried to a clear area and the work of butchering begins. This is skilled labor requiring knowledge of anatomy, careful knife work, and an understanding of which parts should be eaten immediately, which can be dried for later and which might have other uses. Bones that can become tools, sinews that can become cordage, hides that can become clothing or shelter materials. Nothing is waste. Everything the animal provides will be used in some way, a testament both to the value of the resource and to the respect that is felt toward the creature that gave its life so that others might live. Children gather around, watching the butchering with fascination. This is how they learn, not from books or lectures, but from observation, from being present when important things happen, from asking questions and receiving answers in the context of real work being done. Some of them will eventually become hunters themselves, and the lessons they are absorbing now will serve them when that time comes. Others may focus on different skills, but even so, understanding where food comes from and how it is processed is knowledge that everyone in the group shares. The work of butchering takes time, but it is not rushed. The afternoon light is still good, and there are enough hands to share the labor. Conversation continues as the work progresses, the hunters telling stories of the chase, others responding with questions or comments, laughter erupting occasionally. When someone says something funny, the mood is good, relaxed. The tension of the hunt now released into the quiet satisfaction of a successful conclusion. As pieces of meat are prepared,
Some are set aside for cooking tonight, others are sliced thin and hung over a wooden frame to begin the drying process, preservation by air and smoke, one of the oldest technologies for keeping food edible over time. Still others are distributed immediately, small pieces given to children as treats, larger portions allocated to those who have particular needs, the sick, the elderly, nursing mothers, anyone whose body requires extra nutrition.
This distribution of resources was probably governed by complex social norms that we can only partially reconstruct. Sharing was essential in hunter-gatherer societies, essential not just morally, but practically, because no individual or family could survive alone, and the fortunes of any particular day were up. Today, you might have more than you need. Tomorrow, you might have less, and the only way to navigate this uncertainty was through a web of mutual obligation and generosity.
The evening begins to approach.
The sky in the west is beginning to change color, the first hints of sunset appearing on the horizon. The air is cooling now, and people begin to gather closer together, drawn toward the central fire that has been maintained all day, its flames low but steady, ready to be built up for the night ahead. Fire. Of all the technologies that humans have developed, none is more fundamental than fire. We have been using fire for perhaps 1,000,000 years, maybe longer, so long that our very bodies have adapted to its presence, our teeth growing smaller as cooked food became easier to chew, our guts growing shorter as cooked food became easier to digest, our faces changing shape as the muscles used for heavy chewing became less necessary. Fire is not just a tool that we use, it is a force that has shaped us, that has made us who we are. Tonight, the fire is particularly important because there is meat to cook. Fresh meat, rich with fat and protein, transformed by heat from something raw and difficult to digest into something tender and nourishing. The smell of cooking food fills the air, and the mood in the camp shifts subtly, becoming anticipatory, attention drawn toward the flames where dinner is being prepared. But cooking is not just about nutrition. It is also about gathering together, about creating a focal point for social interaction, about the simple magic of transformation that happens when raw materials are converted into something new by the application of heat. People who might have been scattered around the camp during the day now come together, forming a loose circle around the fire, their faces illuminated by the dancing flames. The meal, when it comes, is eaten slowly. There is no hurry, no sense that you need to finish quickly so you can move on to the next thing. You eat with your hands, tearing pieces of meat from the bone, savoring the taste and texture, feeling the warmth spread through your body as nourishment enters your system. Around you, others do the same, their faces satisfied, their conversation easy and unforced. This is one of the most ancient of human experiences, the shared meal. For as long as there have been humans, we have gathered together to eat, to share food, to talk and laugh, and argue and connect. The specifics have changed over time. The foods, the cooking methods, the containers and utensils, but the essential experience remains the same. Food brings people together. It always has. It always will. As the meal winds down, the sky continues to darken. The sun has set now, and the brilliant colors of sunset are fading into the deep blue of twilight. Stars are beginning to appear, first one by one, and then in growing numbers, each point of light, a sun impossibly far away, part of a universe so vast that even 40,000 years ago, people looked up and felt a sense of wonder that defies description. The fire is the only source of light now, and its importance grows as the darkness deepens. People move closer, arranging themselves in positions of comfort around the flames. The work of the day is done. The obligations have been met. The hours that remain before sleep are free hours, time that belongs to no task, that can be spent however one wishes. For many, this time is spent in conversation. The darkness and the fire seem to encourage a different kind of talk than what happens during the day. More reflective, more storytelling, more willing to explore ideas and memories and possibility. Someone begins to tell a story, and the others fall quiet to listen, their faces attentive in the firelight. Storytelling is one of the most important things that humans do. It is how we preserve knowledge, how we pass on values, how we make sense of a world that can often seem random and confusing. The stories told around fires 40,000 years ago would have included practical information: where to find water in the dry season, what animals to avoid, how to navigate from one place to another. But they would also have included myths and legends, tales of ancestors and spirits, explanations for the origins of things, narratives that helped people understand their place in the universe. Tonight, the story being told is one you have heard before, a tale of clever hunters who outsmarted a dangerous animal, or of a young woman who discovered a new source of food, or of ancient beings who shaped the land and sky in the time before time. The details don't matter as much as the telling, the voice rising and falling in the firelight, the faces of listeners rapt with attention, the sense of connection that comes from sharing in a story that belongs to the whole community. Stories like this would eventually become the foundation of all human culture, the religions and philosophies, the literature and art, the histories and sciences that we have accumulated over millennia. It all begins here, around the fire in the darkness, with voices speaking into the night and ears listening intently. The story ends, and there is a pause, a moment of silence that holds the weight of what has been shared. Then someone else begins to speak, perhaps adding to the story, perhaps starting a new one, perhaps just offering a comment or a joke that breaks the spell of seriousness. The conversation flows onward, natural and unforced, like water finding its way downhill. At some point during the evening, music begins. Not music as we might think of it in the modern world, not a formal performance with instruments and audience, but something more organic, more integrated into the flow of social life. Someone begins to hum, or to tap a rhythm on a log or stone. Others join in, adding their voices or their own rhythmic contributions. The sound builds slowly, not according to any plan, but through a process of collective improvisation that is as old as humanity itself. We know that music existed 40,000 years ago because we have found the instruments. Bone flutes, carefully carved and precisely tuned, have been discovered at archaeological sites dating to this period. These are not primitive tools. They are sophisticated musical instruments capable of producing a range of notes and melodies. And if people were making flutes, they were almost certainly using their voices, their hands, their bodies to create music in ways that left no physical trace, but were no less real for that absence. Music and rhythm seem to be fundamental to the human experience. There is no known culture that lacks them. Every society on Earth, no matter how isolated or how different from others, has some form of music, some way of organizing sound in time that creates patterns and evokes emotion. This suggests that music is not just a cultural invention, but something deeply embedded in our neurology, something that evolved because it served important functions, coordinating group activities, strengthening social bonds, expressing emotions that words alone cannot capture. Tonight, the music is simple but effective. It rises and falls with the mood of the group, sometimes energetic and playful, sometimes slow and people may move their bodies to the rhythm, not in formal dancing, but in the natural swaying and nodding that happens when music enters the body. Children who are still awake may laugh and jump, burning off the last of their energy before sleep claims them. As the evening deepens, some people begin to decorate their bodies using pigments made from ground minerals mixed with animal fat or plant oils. They draw patterns on their skin, lines and dots and curves that might represent aspects of their identity, their relationships, their spiritual belief. This is not mere vanity, it is communication, a visual language that speaks to others about who you are and where you come from and what you believe. Body decoration in the prehistoric world was likely rich and complex. We have found evidence of personal ornaments, beads made from shells or animal teeth, pendants carved from bone or stone, feathers and other materials that were worn in ways that indicated meaning. These items were not just decorative, they were symbols, markers of identity, expressions of creativity and aesthetic sensibility that challenge any notion of early humans as brutish or uncultured. Tonight, as someone paints patterns on their arms and chest, others watch with interest, commenting on the designs, perhaps requesting similar patterns for themselves. This is art, even if the word did not exist. This is the same creative impulse that would eventually produce the paintings in the caves of Lascaux and Altamira, the sculptures of ancient civilizations, the masterpieces of human artistic achievement across all of history. The fire burns lower now. Someone adds more wood, and the flames leap up briefly before settling back into a steady glow. The night is fully dark outside the circle of light, the stars blazing overhead in numbers that modern city dwellers cannot even imagine. Without artificial light to obscure them, the stars dominate the sky, a river of light stretching from horizon to horizon, countless points of distant fire that seem almost close enough to touch. People have always looked at the stars and wondered 40,000 years ago, just as today, the night sky inspired questions that had no easy answers. What are those lights? How far away are they? Are we alone in the universe? Do the patterns we see have meaning? Do the movements of stars and planets affect our lives? These questions may not have been phrased in the same way, may not have been asked with the same vocabulary, but the underlying wonder was the same sense of awe and mystery that still grips us when we look up at a clear night sky.
Tonight, an elder is pointing out constellations to a group of younger people, not the same constellations we know today. Those are largely Greek inventions, imposed on the sky relatively recently in human history, but patterns that this culture has identified, stories that have been attached to particular arrangements of stars. This one represents a great animal that once roamed the earth. That one marks the direction of an important water source. Another shows the path that spirits take when they leave the world of the living. This is practical knowledge and spiritual knowledge woven together, as they so often were in the prehistoric world. The stars served as a calendar, helping people track the passage of seasons and know when to expect certain plants or animals. But they also served as a reminder of larger mysteries, of the immensity of the universe and the smallness of human life, of the connections between the visible world and invisible forces that might lie beyond. As the night deepens, the group gradually grows quiet. The energy of the evening has been spent, and bodies are beginning to signal their readiness for sleep. Children who were awake earlier have long since drifted off, curled up near the fire or carried to shelters by adults. Even some of the older people are dozing now, their heads nodding, their breathing slowing. This is the time when the world becomes most still. The sounds of the day, bird calls, insect songs, the bustle of human activity have faded into silence. The fire crackles softly, a comforting sound that has marked the end of countless days for countless generations. The stars wheel slowly overhead, marking the passage of time in their ancient, unhurried way. You feel the tiredness in your own body now. It is not the exhausted collapse that comes from being pushed beyond your limits, but rather a natural, satisfied tiredness, the kind that comes from a day well lived. You have eaten, you have worked, you have rested, you have connected with the people you love. You have heard stories and made music and watched the stars. You have been fully present in a world that asks nothing more of you than that you live within it. You rise from your place by the fire and make your way toward your shelter. Others are doing the same, moving through the darkness with the easy familiarity of people who know every inch of their environment. The fire will be tended through the night by someone whose turn it is to keep watch. There is always someone awake, always someone alert for danger. Though in this place at this time, danger is unlikely. Still, the habit persists, a remnant of countless generations when predators were a more immediate threat. Inside the shelter, the darkness is nearly complete, but you don't need light to find your place. You feel the familiar textures of animal hides and dried grasses, the warmth of bodies already sleeping, the enclosed comfort of this small space that has been your home for as long as you can remember. You settle into position, feeling your muscles relax, feeling the weight of the day lift from your shoulders. The sounds of the night filter through the soft crackle of the fire, the distant call of an owl, the breathing of the people around you. These sounds are not disturbing. They are familiar, part of the soundtrack of your life, as constant and as comforting as your own heartbeat. And sleep comes, not the troubled, interrupted sleep that so many modern people experience, but the deep, restorative sleep that humans are designed for. Your body knows what to do. Your mind knows when to release its grip on consciousness. There is no alarm set for the morning, no anxiety about what tomorrow might bring. There is only this moment, this darkness, this warmth, this peace. In your sleep, you may dream. Humans have always dreamed, and dreams have always been important. For prehistoric people, dreams may have seemed like visits to another world, a realm where spirits dwelled and messages could be received from powers beyond ordinary understanding. Dream interpretation was likely a significant practice, with certain individuals perhaps recognized for their ability to understand and explain what dreams meant. Tonight, you dream of moving through a familiar landscape, the places you know transformed by the logic of sleep into something both familiar and strange. You encounter people you have known, some still living, some who have died, and you speak with them in a language that has no words. You may dream of animals, of hunts, of gathering expeditions that end in unexpected discoveries. You may dream of the stars, of flying, of things that make no sense upon waking but feel deeply meaningful while they are happening. And then the dream fades, and you sink into the deeper levels of sleep, where dreams do not reach, where the mind is quiet and the body repairs itself, where hours pass like seconds and the night enfolds you in its darkness. This is how human beings slept for most of our history, not in isolated rooms behind locked doors, not in regulated intervals dictated by alarm clocks and work schedules, but in groups surrounded by the warmth of community, following the natural rhythms of light and darkness that governed all of life. The hours pass, the fire dies down to embers and is built up again by the person keeping watch. The stars trace their slow arcs across the sky, the same patterns they have followed for billions of years and will continue to follow for billions more. The moon, if it has risen, casts its pale light over the landscape, silvering the leaves and water in the sleeping bodies of the community. And then, slowly, imperceptibly at first, the sky begins to lighten again. The first hints of dawn appear on the eastern horizon, barely visible at first, a faint softening of the darkness that grows gradually brighter as the sun approaches. The stars begin to fade, the birds begin to stir. Another day is beginning, as countless days have begun before it, as countless days will begin after. You become aware of this slowly, your sleeping mind rising gradually toward consciousness, climbing up through the levels of sleep toward wakefulness. You feel the warmth of the bodies around you, hear the first bird calls of the morning, sense the growing light even through your closed eyelids. And gently, gradually you wake. This morning, like yesterday morning, like tomorrow morning, the world is waiting for you. The sun is rising, the community is stirring, the tasks of the day lie ahead, not as burdens to be endured, but as opportunities to live, to be present, to participate in the ongoing story of human existence. But before we return fully to that prehistoric morning, let us pause here for a moment. Let us rest in this quiet space between night and day, between sleep and waking, between the world of 40,000 years ago and the world that surrounds you now, because throughout this journey, we have been exploring a question: what did early humans actually do all day? And the answer, as we have seen, is far richer and more varied than popular imagination often suggests.
They woke slowly, surrounded by people they loved. They ate simple meals, nourishing their bodies with foods they had gathered, and hunted themselves. They worked, but not too much. A few hours of gathering, perhaps a hunting expedition, tasks that were necessary, but not overwhelming. They rested, lying in the shade, watching clouds, letting their minds wander. They talked and laughed and argued and made up, navigating the complex social world of a close-knit community. They made tools and art, expressing creativity and problem-solving in equal measure. They sang and danced and painted their bodies with patterns that carried meaning. They watched the stars and wondered about the universe. They told stories around the fire, preserving knowledge and values for future generations. And when the day was done, they slept, trusting the night and the community to keep them safe until morning came again. This is not the brutish existence we were taught to imagine. This is a fully human life, rich with meaning and connection and beauty. It had its challenges, certainly illness and injury, dangers from predators and weather, the loss of loved ones to the inevitable processes of life and death. But it also had rewards that are increasingly rare in our modern world: deep social bonds, meaningful work, time for rest and reflection, a sense of place and belonging that many of us have lost. And here is perhaps the most remarkable thing of all: you are the inheritor of all this history. Every morning that you wake as the product of 40,000 years and far, far longer of human experience. Every instinct that stirs within you, every emotion that moves you, every capacity you possess was shaped by those countless generations of ancestors who lived and loved and survived so that you could exist. The world they lived in is gone, transformed beyond recognition by agriculture and industry and technology. The skills they possessed, the ability to read a landscape, to track an animal, to identify hundreds of plant species, to navigate by the stars, have largely faded from human knowledge, replaced by other skills that serve other purposes. The communities they lived in, those tight-knit bands of 20 or 30 people who knew each other completely, have given way to vast anonymous societies where most of the people you encounter are strangers you will never see again. And yet something remains. Something in you still responds to the warmth of a fire, still feels peace in the presence of nature, still longs for deep connection with others, still needs rest as much as activity, still looks up at the stars with wonder. These are not weaknesses to be overcome or primitive impulses to be suppressed.
These are the core of what you are, the deep humanity that links you to everyone who has ever lived and everyone who ever will. So as you lie here now, in whatever modern shelter surrounds you, in whatever year and place and circumstance you find yourself, remember that you are not alone. You are connected across time and space to all those who came before. The same moon that you might see through your window shone on their faces as well. The same patterns of stars wheeled overhead. The same need for food and shelter and love and meaning animated their days as it animates yours. And now, as this story comes to a close, you may find yourself drifting, just as our prehistoric ancestors drifted, from wakefulness towards sleep. This is natural. This is what your body and mind are designed to do when the day is done and the darkness has come and there is nothing more that needs to be accomplished. Let yourself sink into that drift. Let the sounds of the night, whatever they may be in your world, become the sounds of safety and comfort. Let the weight of the day lift from you, as it lifted from those ancient people who lay down by their fires and close their eyes. Tomorrow will bring its own challenges, its own tasks, its own opportunities for connection and creation. But tomorrow is not here yet. Right now, there is only this moment, this breath, this quiet space where the past and the present meet and mingle. The fire is dying down. The stars are wheeling overhead. Somewhere in the deep past that is never really past, a voice is whispering stories into the darkness, and you are listening, just as you have always listened, just as humans have always listened. When the night has come, and the fire is warm, and the world is at peace. Sleep now, rest. Let the long day of human history carry you into dream. And when you wake, whether it is to the light of the sun or the sound of an alarm, remember that you carry within you the lives of all those who came before, their wisdom, their wonder, their capacity for love and laughter and hope. This is your inheritance. This is your connection to the deep past. This is what it means to be human. The fire glows softly in the darkness. The stars turn overhead. The night enfolds you in its ancient embrace. And slowly, gently, peacefully, you sleep. The morning that follows is like many mornings before it. The light comes gradually, softening the darkness, painting the eastern sky in colors that have no names but that stir something in you nonetheless. The birds begin their songs, each species adding its voice to the growing chorus, a symphony that has been performed every dawn for millions of years. You wake slowly, emerging from sleep like a diver rising from deep water. There is no jarring transition, no alarm shocking you into consciousness, no immediate demands pulling you from your rest. There is only the gentle insistence of the light, the warmth of the bodies around you, the familiar sounds and smells of another day. Someone near you stirs, and you exchange a few quiet sounds. Not quite words, but something older than words, an acknowledgement of presence and connection. You have slept well. You can feel it in your body, in the ease of your muscles and the clarity of your mind. The night has done its work, and you are ready for whatever the day may bring. But before you rise, you lie here for a moment longer, savoring the transition. The shelter around you is warm and familiar, a space you have known all your life. His smells are the smells of home, wood smoke, animal hides, dried grasses, the commingled scents of the people you love. The sounds are the sounds of your community waking, soft voices, the crackle of the fire being built up, the laughter of a child who has already found the energy for play. This moment of transition is precious, It is a threshold between sleep and waking, between the private world of dreams and the shared world of the day. In the modern world, this threshold is often crossed too quickly, rushed through in the scramble to meet obligations and schedules. But here, 40,000 years in the past, there is no such rush. The day will unfold at its own pace, and there is time for everything that needs to happen. You rise eventually, stretching your body, feeling the good ache of muscles that are alive and ready to work. The morning air is cool against your skin, and you step out of your shelter into a world that is familiar, but always somehow new. The same trees and rocks and paths you have known forever, but in this morning's light they look different, as if seen for the first time. The camp is stirring to life around you. Others are emerging from their shelters, blinking in the light, exchanging greetings with those who are already awake. Children are tumbling over each other, their energy already at full strength. Despite the early hour, elders are moving more slowly, their bodies carrying the weight of years, but their eyes bright with the wisdom that comes from having seen so many mornings. You make your way toward the fire, where someone has already begun preparing food. The routine is familiar. You know what will happen, know what your role will be, know who will do what, and in what order. But this familiarity is not boredom, it is comfort, the deep security that comes from knowing your place in a world that makes sense. The food this morning is simple but nourishing. There are leftovers from last night's meal, meat that was cooked over the fire, roots that were roasted in the embers, berries that were gathered yesterday and stored overnight. You eat without hurry, chewing slowly, tasting each bite, feeling your body receive what it needs to begin the day. Around you, conversation flows easily. Someone is talking about a dream they had, wondering what it might mean. Someone else is discussing plans for the day. There is a need for more firewood, a nearby water source that should be checked, a child who needs new shoes and will require a trip to gather the material. The talk is practical and social, and sometimes funny, the constant chatter of people who live together and know each other completely. You have nothing pressing to do this morning. The gathering you did yesterday was successful, and there is enough food for today and tomorrow. No hunting expedition is planned until the day after. The tools you need are in good condition, and so this morning is yours, to spend as you wish in whatever way feels right. You choose to walk, not a purposeful walk with a destination in mind, but a wandering, exploring walk, the kind where you let your feet take you where they will. The camp is located near a river, and you head in that direction, drawn by the sound of water and the cool air that rises from the flowing stream. The path to the river is well worn, traveled so many times by so many feet that it is visible as a faint trace through the vegetation. You know every tree and rock along the way, have known them since you were too young to remember knowing them. That large boulder where you once saw a snake sunning itself, that fallen log that makes a good place to sit and rest, that cluster of bushes where a particular type of berry grows, though they won't be ripe for another month yet. The river, when you reach it, is beautiful in the morning light. The sun is still low, and its rays slant across the water at an angle that makes it sparkle like something alive.
The sound of the current is steady and soothing, a constant backdrop that has been playing for as long as there has been water to flow and ears to hearing. You sit down on the riverbank and simply watch. The water moves past in endless variation, the same patterns never quite repeating, the surface constantly changing while somehow remaining the same. Insects dance above the current, catching the light like tiny jewels. A fish breaks the surface briefly and then disappears, leaving only ripples that spread and fade. A bird calls from somewhere in the trees on the opposite bank. This is observation without purpose,
awareness without agenda. It is a mode of being that was probably much more common in the prehistoric world than it is today, without clocks to watch or schedules to keep, without the constant pressure to be productive. People had time simply to be, to exist in the present moment, to pay attention to the world around them without trying to change it or use it or understand it. Modern research suggests that this kind of unfocused attention is actually important for mental health. When we allow our minds to wander, when we simply observe without trying to accomplish anything, we give our brains a chance to process information, to make connections, to recover from the focused effort that other tasks require. The prehistoric lifestyle, with its long periods of rest and observation, may have provided this kind of mental recovery naturally, as a built-in feature of how life was lived. You sit by the river for a long time, maybe an hour, maybe more. There is no way to measure time precisely, and no need to. The sun climbs higher in the sky, and eventually you feel the urge to move again, to return to the camp and see what is happening there. The walk back is leisure. You stop several times to investigate things that catch your attention: an unusual plant, an animal track, a stone that has an interesting shape. Each of these small observations adds to the vast database of knowledge that you carry in your head, the accumulated learning of a lifetime spent in this landscape. Most of what you observe is not new, but confirming what you already know is its own kind of knowledge, a way of verifying that the world is as it should be. Back at the camp, the morning has progressed. Some people are working on various tasks, repairing tools, processing materials, preparing food. Others are resting in the shade, talking or dozing. Children are playing a game that involves running and chasing, their shouts and laughter rising above the other sounds of the camp. You join a group that is working on a project, making new carrying bags from animal hide. This is skilled work, requiring knowledge of how to treat and prepare the hide, how to cut it into the right shapes, how to sew the pieces together using sinews for thread. The process will take several days, with time needed between steps for the materials to dry and cure. Today the task is cutting, using stone blades that were knapped for this purpose. The group carefully cuts the prepared hide into pieces that will eventually become the panels of the bag. The work requires concentration, but not all of your attention, and so conversation continues as hands move with practiced skill. The talk today is about families, about relationships, about the connections between people in the group and in other groups that are known but not often seen. Someone mentions a cousin who married into a band that lives 2 days' travel to the south. Someone else remembers a gathering several years ago when many bands came together and there was much trading and feasting and matchmaking. The web of relationships extends far beyond this immediate camp, connecting you to people across a wide landscape, people you might only see occasionally but who are nonetheless part of your social world. This extended social network was crucial for prehistoric survival. No single band was large enough to maintain complete genetic diversity or to buffer against local disaster. By maintaining relationships with other bands through trade, through intermarriage, through shared rituals and gatherings, people ensured that there would be options if things went wrong in one place, allies who could be called upon in times of need. The work on the bags continues through the morning. The sun moves across the sky, marking the passage of time in the most ancient way. Eventually, the cutting is done, and the pieces are set aside to await the next stage of the process. People drift away from the work area, moving on to other activities or simply resting. Lunch, if it can be called that, is informal. There is food available, nuts and dried fruits, some leftover meat, and people eat when they are hungry, taking what they need without ceremony. There is no fixed meal time, no bell or announcement calling everyone to eat together. Food is simply there, communal property shared among all, and when you are hungry, you eat.
The afternoon is hot, the sun beating down from a clear sky. Activity slows as people seek shade and rest. This is the slow pulse of the day, the natural rhythm of energy and rest that governs all life in environments where there is no artificial climate control. You find a comfortable spot beneath a large tree and lie down, feeling the solid earth beneath you, the gentle breeze on your skin, the dappled light filtering through the leaves above. Others are nearby, some sleeping, some talking quietly, some simply existing in that peaceful state between sleep and wakefulness.
This is not speculation. This is not romantic fantasy about a noble past. This is what the evidence tells us. 40,000 years ago, Homo sapiens, your species, our species, had already been walking the earth for over 200,000 years. By 40,000 years ago, early humans had already developed language, not simple grunts and gestures, but true language, complex and nuanced, capable of expressing abstract ideas, capable of telling stories, capable of sharing dreams and fears and hopes. By 40,000 years ago, early humans had already begun creating art, painting images on cave walls that still take our breath away today, carving figures from bone and ivory, decorating their bodies with pigments and shells and beads. By 40,000 years ago, early humans had already developed spiritual beliefs, already created rituals to mark the passages of life, already contemplated the meaning of death and what might lie beyond it. These were not primitive people. These were people like you and me, people who loved and laughed and grieved, people who wondered about the stars above them, people who held their children close and watched them grow, people who gathered around fires in the evening and shared, people who found beauty in the world around them and tried to capture that beauty in their creations. And yet, there is a persistent myth, a stubborn image that refuses to fade from our collective imagination. When most people think of early humans, they picture something like a caveman from a cartoon or a movie, a hunched and hairy figure dragging a club through a hostile landscape, constantly fighting for survival, constantly on the edge of starvation, living a life that was, in the famous words of a philosopher from a much later era, brutish and short. But what if that picture is wrong? What if it is not just incomplete, but fundamentally misleading? What if early humans, those anatomically modern people who lived 40,000 years ago, actually led lives that were, in many ways, richer and more balanced than the lives many of us lead today? This is the question we will explore together tonight, slowly and gently, as you relax and let the tension of the day dissolve into stillness. What did early humans actually do all day? How did they spend their time? And what can their lives teach us about what it means to be human? So settle in, let your shoulders drop, let your breath slow, and allow yourself to imagine you are waking now, slowly, in the soft gray light before dawn. You are not alone. Around you, in the shelter that your people have created, others are beginning to stir as well. The shelter is simple but effective, a structure of bent branches covered with animal hides, designed to keep out the wind and the rain, designed to hold in the warmth of bodies pressed close together. The floor beneath you is covered with soft grasses and furs, creating a nest of comfort that has cradled you through the night. The air is cool on your face, that pleasant coolness of early morning before the sun has risen to warm the world. You can smell the lingering scent of last night's fire, the faint smoke still present in the air, mingling with the earthier smells of the materials that make up your shelter, the grass, the animal skins, the people around you. These smells are familiar. They are the smells of home, of safety, of belonging. You do not leap up immediately. There is no urgency. There is no schedule demanding that you be somewhere at a specific time. The rhythm of your day is determined by the rhythm of the natural world, the rising and setting of the sun, the patterns of the animals you hunt, and the plants you gather, the needs of your body and the needs of your community. And right now, in this quiet moment before the day truly begins, there is nothing demanding your immediate attention. So you lie still for a few moments longer, listening to the sounds around you. You can hear the breathing of those nearby, the soft, rhythmic breathing of sleep, gradually giving way to the deeper, more deliberate breathing of wakefulness. You can hear the sounds of birds beginning to wake in the trees outside, their first tentative calls testing the morning air. You can hear the distant murmur of a stream or river, the water that your people depend on for drinking, for washing, for the fish that swim within it. And beneath all these sounds, you can hear something even more fundamental, the vast silence of a world not yet filled with the noise of machines and engines and electronic devices. This silence is not empty. It is full of the small sounds of life, the rustling of leaves in a gentle breeze, the scurrying of small creatures in the undergrowth, the distant call of a bird of prey circling high above. But these sounds do not intrude upon the silence. They are the voice of the world itself, speaking in a language that your body understands even if your conscious mind does not always notice. And in this silence, in this moment of quiet waking, you feel something that is perhaps harder to find in the modern world. You feel a sense of presence, of being fully here, fully now, fully part of the world around you. You are not thinking about yesterday's problems or tomorrow's worries. You are not scrolling through mental lists of things that need to be done. You are simply here, in this moment, alive and aware, and part of the great web of life that connects all living things. This is how your ancestors woke every morning, not with the jarring intrusion of an alarm, but with the gentle invitation of the natural world, not with immediate stress and urgency, but with a few precious moments of stillness and awareness. And perhaps this is the first thing we can learn from them, the first small gift they offer to us across the vast distance of time. Perhaps we have forgotten how to wake up. Perhaps we have forgotten how to simply be present in those first moments of consciousness before the demands of the day come rushing in. But the day is beginning, and gradually you begin to stir. You stretch your body, feeling the pleasant pull of muscles that have rested through the night. You yawn, a deep, satisfying yawn that seems to fill your entire being. And then, slowly, you sit up and look around at the world that greets you. The others in your group are waking now too, and there is a gentle murmur of voices, soft morning greetings exchanged between people who have known each other all their lives. Your group is not large by modern standards, perhaps 30 or 40 people, maybe a few more, maybe a few less depending on the time of year and the circumstances. But these are not strange. These are the people you have grown up with, the people you have played with and worked with and laughed with since you were a small child. These are your family in the deepest and most meaningful sense of that word. In modern society, we often think of family as a small unit, perhaps a couple of parents and their children, maybe some extended relatives who we see occasionally. But for early humans, family meant something much larger and more encompassing. Everyone in your group is related to you in some way, either by blood or by the deep bonds of shared experience that can be just as strong as blood. You have uncles and aunts, cousins and second cousins, grandparents if they are still living, and a web of connections so complex that you do not even think about it consciously. It is simply the way things are. It is simply the world you live in. And this is important. This sense of connection, this feeling of belonging to something larger than yourself. Because humans are at our core social creatures. We are not meant to live alone, isolated in separate dwellings, interacting with others only occasionally, and often only through screens and devices. We evolved to live in groups, to depend on one another, to share our lives in intimate and constant ways. And while this kind of closeness can sometimes be challenging, can sometimes lead to conflicts and tensions, it also provides something that is often missing from modern life, a deep and abiding sense of being known, of being seen, of being valued simply for who you are. As you move through your morning routines, you are surrounded by the familiar faces of your community. There is the elder who sits near the entrance of the shelter, already awake, perhaps having slept less than the younger members of the group, as is often the way with older people. There is the young mother nursing her infant, the baby, having woken in the night as babies do, now feeding peacefully in the growing light. There are the children, beginning to wake and stretch and whisper to each other, already thinking about the adventures the day might bring. And there are the others, men and women, young and old, each one a unique individual with their own personality and history and role within the community. You know these people, you know their quirks and habits, their strengths and weaknesses, their stories and secrets. You know who is quick to anger and who is slow to forgive. You know who is the best at tracking game and who has the steadiest hands for crafting tools. You know who tells the best stories around the evening fire and who has the most beautiful singing. You know who is struggling with a loss or a worry and who is filled with joy at some recent good fortune. This knowledge is not something you have to think about. It is simply part of you, woven into your understanding of the world as naturally as your knowledge of the landscape around you. And as you greet the others, as you exchange the small words and gestures of morning acknowledgement, you are reinforcing these bonds, strengthening these connections, affirming your place within the community and their place within your life. This is not trivial. This is not mere social convention. This is the foundation of human survival and human flourishing. We are because of our connections to others, and early humans understood this, lived this in ways that perhaps we have forgotten. The morning routines begin now, the simple tasks of everyday life that must be attended to before the day's larger activities can commence. These routines are not rushed. They are not squeezed into a narrow window of time before some urgent appointment. They unfold at a natural pace, in harmony with the rhythm of the awakening world. One of the first tasks is tending to the fire, that essential center of human life, that has been burning in one form or another for hundreds of thousands of years. During the night, the fire has died down to embers, but it has not gone out completely. Someone, usually one of those who sleeps lightly and wakes easily, has been keeping an eye on it through the night, adding small pieces of wood when necessary to keep the coals alive. Now in the morning, it is time to coax those embers back into full flame. This is a task that requires skill and patience. You gather small pieces of dry tinder, the fine fuzzy material from certain plants, thin shavings of bark, tiny twigs, no thicker than blades of grass. You arrange these carefully near the glowing coals, bending close to blow gently on the embers, encouraging them to brighten, to catch, to spread their heat to the waiting fuel. The breath must be just right, steady and controlled, not too strong and not too weak. Too much air will scatter the embers and cool them. Too little will not provide enough oxygen for ignition. But you have done this countless times. Your body knows the rhythm, and slowly, gradually, the first small flames begin to lick at the tinder,
growing stronger, reaching for the larger pieces of wood that you carefully add. There is something deeply satisfying about bringing fire back to life. Fire is warmth in cold mornings. Fire is light in the darkness. Fire is the means of cooking food and hardening spear points and keeping predators at bay. Fire is the center around which your community gathers each evening, the focal point of stories and songs, and the shared moments that bind people together. Fire is in many ways what made humans human. It was the mastery of fire, more than any other single thing, that allowed your ancestors to spread across the world, to survive in cold climates, to eat a wider range of foods, to gather together in the night and share the warmth of community. And so, as the fire comes back to life, crackling and dancing in the morning air, you feel a small moment of satisfaction, of connection to all the generations who came before you, all the way back to that first brave or lucky ancestor who learned to capture and control this powerful force. With the fire burning steadily, other morning tasks can proceed. There is water to be fetched from the nearby stream, and several of the younger members of the group set off with containers made from animal bladders or tightly woven baskets, lined with pitch to make them waterproof. The stream is not far, perhaps a few minutes' walk through the trees, and the sound of their voices and laughter fades gradually as they make their way along the familiar path. Water is life. This is not a metaphor for early humans, it is a simple truth. Your camp is located near the stream precisely because water is so essential. Humans can survive for weeks without food, but only days without water, and so the location of reliable water sources shapes the pattern of human movement across the landscape, determines where camps can be established, influences which routes are traveled and which are avoided. Water is drunk, of course, but it is also used for cooking, for washing, for processing certain foods and materials. It is used to extinguish fires that have grown too large, to clean wounds, to cool fevered brows. It is used in rituals, in ceremonies, in moments of significance.
Water is woven through every aspect of life. While the young people fetch water, others are attending to their own morning needs. The camp has a designated area, away from the living space, for relieving oneself, and people make their way there in turn, observing the basic rules of hygiene that help keep the community healthy. These rules are not written down, of course. There is no writing yet, no way to record instructions on paper or stone for future generations, but the rules are known. They are passed down from parents to children, from elders to young people, through observation and instruction, and the countless small corrections that shape behavior over time. Early humans understood hygiene, perhaps not in the modern scientific sense of germs and bacteria and infection, but in the practical sense of what worked and what did not. They knew that waste attracted flies and other pests. They knew that contaminated water could cause illness. They knew that wounds needed to be cleaned and treated. They knew that certain practices kept them healthy and certain other practices did not. This knowledge was hard-won, over countless generations through trial and error, and it was passed on carefully because the survival of the group depended on it. Breakfast, if we can call it that, is a simple affair. There are no eggs and bacon, no toast and jam, no coffee brewing in a pot. The elaborate morning meals that many modern people enjoy, or the hurried grab-and-go snacks that many others substitute, are concepts that would be entirely foreign to early human. Instead, breakfast consists of whatever food is readily available, whatever was left over from the previous day's gathering and hunting, whatever can be quickly prepared without extensive effort. Perhaps there are some roots that were dug yesterday, now roasted in the hot ashes near the fire until they are soft and slightly sweet.
Perhaps there are nuts gathered in the previous weeks, their hard shells cracked open to reveal the rich, fatty fate inside. Perhaps there is dried meat from a recent hunt, preserved through smoking or salting, or simple air drying, chewy and intensely flavored. Perhaps there are some berries or fruits gathered the day before, still relatively fresh and bursting with juice. The specific foods vary enormously depending on the season, the location, and the success of recent foraging and hunting activities. But whatever is available is shared. And this is another thing worth noting, another aspect of a human life that stands in contrast to modern individualism. Food is shared, not just among immediate family members, but across the entire group. If one person has an abundance and another has nothing, the abundance is distributed. This is not generosity in the way that we sometimes think of it, a voluntary and somewhat exceptional act of kindness. This is simply how things work. Sharing is the expectation. Sharing is the norm. Hoarding is unacceptable. Accumulating far more than you need while others go hungry is simply not done. This does not mean that everyone gets exactly the same amount of everything at all times. There are nuances and variations. A successful hunter might get the first choice of meat from the kill. An elder might be offered the softest and most easily digestible foods. A pregnant or nursing mother might receive extra portions to support the energy demands of growing and feeding a child, but the basic principle remains. Resources are pooled. Wealth, such as it is common, and everyone's survival is seen as everyone's concern.
This is one of the most profound differences between early human life and modern life, and it is worth pausing to let it sink in. For most of human history, for hundreds of thousands of years, people lived in menaches where sharing was automatic and hoarding was unthinkable. Private property, in the sense of individuals accumulating resources far beyond their immediate needs, did not exist. Competition, in the sense of individuals striving to outdo their neighbors and achieve greater wealth and status, was limited. Instead, cooperation was the primary mode of existence. The good of the group and the good of the individual were not seen as being in conflict. They were seen as one and the same. This does not mean that early human societies were utopia. There were conflicts, disagreements, jealousies, and resentments. Human nature was the same then as it is now. But the structure of society, the small size of groups and the close relationships between members, the need for everyone to contribute, and the impossibility of surviving alone, all of this shaped behavior in ways that promoted cooperation over competition, sharing over hoarding, mutual aid over individualism. And perhaps this is another gift that our ancestors offer us across the expanse of time. Perhaps they remind us that the hyper-competitive, individualistic mode of existence that characterizes so much of modern life is not the only way to be human. Perhaps they remind us that we evolved for connection, for cooperation, for belonging to communities that care for all their members. Perhaps they invite us to question whether the way we live now is truly the best way, the only way, or whether there might be other paths that our ancestors walked for countless generations before the modern world arose. As the morning progresses, the pace of activity in the camp gradually increases. But here is something important to understand, something that contradicts the common image of early humans as constantly struggling to survive. The pace remains gentle. The activity, while purposeful, is not frantic. There is work to be done, certainly. Life requires effort, but that effort is not the exhausting, all-consuming labor that characterizes so much of modern existence. Anthropologists who have studied Modern hunter-gatherer societies, groups that still live or lived until recently, in ways similar to early humans, have discovered something surprising. These people, far from spending every waking moment in desperate struggle, actually work far less than people in modern industrial societies. Estimates vary, but most studies suggest that the average hunter-gatherer spends somewhere between 3 and 5 hours per day on activities that could be considered work, the direct pursuit of food and the maintenance of basic necessities. The rest of the time is spent in leisure, in social activities, in rest and relaxation, in play and creativity, and simply enjoying life. This finding has been called the original affluent society. It challenges our assumptions about progress, about development, about what it means for life to get better. We tend to assume that human history is a story of steady improvement, that life in the past was harder, more brutal, more difficult than life today, and that the march of civilization has made things progressively better for everyone. But the evidence suggests a more complicated picture. In some ways, the lives of early humans were harder. Certainly, there were no hospitals, no antibiotics, no comfortable heated homes in winter. Life expectancy was lower, and the risks of injury, illness, and death were high. But in other ways, the lives of early humans may have been richer, more balanced, more filled with the things that make life worth living. They had more leisure time. They had deeper connections with others. They had more contact with the natural world. They had lives filled with meaning and purpose that came not from external achievements and accumulations, but from the simple facts of being alive, of being part of a community, of participating in the ancient rhythms of human existence. So as you move through your morning 40,000 years ago, you are not rushing, you are not anxious, you are not worried about productivity or efficiency or getting as much done as possible in as little time as possible. You are simply living at a pace that feels natural to your body and your mind, in a way that allows for rest and reflection and the full experience of being alive. The morning's main activity is gathering. Not everyone will participate. Some will stay at camp to tend the fire, to watch the children, to work on various projects that require attention. But a group of you, perhaps 8 or 10 people, set off from the camp to collect the plant foods that form the bulk of your diet. This is one of the most common misconceptions about early humans, the idea that they were primarily hunters, that meat was the center of their diet, that the hunt was the defining activity of their existence. In fact, the opposite is closer to the truth. For most early human groups, in most environments, plant foods, things like roots and tubers, nuts and seeds, fruits and berries, leaves and shoots, provided the majority of calories. Meat was important, certainly. It provided essential nutrients that were difficult to obtain from plants alone, particularly in certain environments. But meat was not the staple. It was the supplement, the addition, the welcome but not daily occurrence. And this is why the image of early humans as primarily hunters, as mighty warriors pursuing large game across the savannah, is somewhat misleading. If you want to understand what early humans actually did all day, you need to understand gathering. And gathering, it turns out, is a fascinating and complex activity, far more skilled and interesting than the simple image of picking berries might suggest. As you set off from camp, you carry with you the tools of the gatherer. There is a digging stick, a simple but effective implement for extracting roots and tubers from the earth. There are containers, bags and baskets, and pouches made from various materials, designed to hold the foods you collect and carry them back to camp. There is perhaps a small knife or sharp stone for cutting and processing plants in the field, And there is the most important tool of all, the accumulated knowledge in your head, the detailed understanding of the landscape and its resources that has been passed down to you from your elders. This knowledge is vast and intricate. You know which plants are edible and which are poisonous. You know which ones are nutritious and which ones provide little benefit. You know when each plant is in season, when its fruits ripen, or its roots become rich with stored energy. You know where to find each plant, which areas have the best stands of this particular tuber or that particular nut tree. You know how to process each food, which ones can be eaten raw and which ones require cooking, which ones need to be soaked or pounded or heated to remove toxins or improve digestibility. This knowledge is not learned from books. There are no books. There is no writing. This knowledge is learned through experience, through years of following elders on gathering trips, watching what they do, listening to what they say, asking questions and receiving answers, making mistakes and learning from them. By the time you reach adulthood, you carry within you an encyclopedia of botanical and ecological knowledge that would take many volumes to record in writing, and this knowledge is not static. It continues to grow and develop throughout your life as you explore new areas, as conditions change, as you share diverse with others who have gathered in different places and discovered different things. The gathering expedition takes you through a landscape that you know intimately. Every feature of this land is familiar to you, every hill and valley, every stream and spring, every rock formation and notable tree. You know this landscape because you have walked it countless times since you were a small child following in the footsteps of adults, and you will continue to walk it until the day you die. This is your home in a sense that most modern people never experience. Modern people tend to live in built environments, in houses and apartments and buildings that are essentially interchangeable, that could be located almost anywhere. The natural landscape, if it is present at all, is often a backdrop, a view from a window, a place visited occasionally for recreation. But for early humans, the natural landscape is not a backdrop. It is the substance of life itself. It is the source of all food, all water. It is the context within which every activity takes place. And knowing this landscape, understanding it deeply and intimately, is essential for survival. As you walk, you are constantly reading the environment. You notice the signs of animal activity, a footprint in the mud, droppings on the trail, marks on a tree where an animal has rubbed its body or sharpened its claws. These signs are information, data about what animals are in the area, where they might be found, whether they pose any threat. You notice the condition of plants, which ones are thriving and which ones are struggling, which ones are flowering or fruiting, which ones have already been visited by other gatherers or by animals. You notice changes in the landscape, a tree that has fallen, a stream that has shifted its course, an area where a fire has recently burned and new growth is emerging. All of this noticing is largely unconscious, automatic, a constant background process that runs without requiring deliberate attention. You have been trained from childhood to observe the world around you, to take in information, to recognize patterns and anomalies. This is a skill that most modern people have lost or never developed, but it is a skill that was essential for early humans, a skill that your brain is designed for, that evolution has honed over millions of years. And there is something deeply satisfying about moving through a landscape in this way, fully present and aware, your senses attuned to the subtle signals of the natural world. It is a mode of being that feels right, that feels authentic, that feels like what humans are meant to do. And perhaps this is another gift from your ancestors, another reminder of what has been lost in the transition to modern life.
Perhaps they remind us that our brains evolved for engagement with the natural world, for reading landscapes and tracking animals and noticing the subtle changes in the environment that signal danger or opportunity. Perhaps they invite us to spend more time in nature, more time away from the artificial environments that dominate modern existence, more time reconnecting with the fundamental human experience of being an animal in a world of animals. The gathering proceeds at a leisurely pace. You are not in a hurry. You have the entire day, and the amount of food you need to collect is not overwhelming. Your group has camped in this area precisely because resources are abundant here, because the land provides generously, because you can meet your needs without exhausting yourself or depleting the environment. This is another aspect of early human life that is worth understanding. Early humans did not live in constant scarcity. They were not perpetually on the brink of starvation, scrambling desperately for every morsel. Instead, they lived within their means, moving through the landscape in patterns that allowed resources to regenerate, never taking more than they needed, never staying so long in one place that they exhausted the local supply of food. This is not to say that there were no hard times. There were seasons of scarcity, times when food was less abundant and hunger was a real concern. There were droughts and floods, harsh winters and failed hunts, times when life was difficult and survival was uncertain. That these were the exceptions, not the rule.
For most of the time in most environments, early humans had enough. And having enough, they had time for other things.